Indie Beacon Radio with the host, B. Alan Bourgeois.
Welcome to Indie Beacon Radio, where creative souls can find help in marketing their creations. You can send questions for each show on Twitter using the hashtag IndieBeacon. Now sit back and enjoy learning about our guest for this show.
Welcome to Indie Beacon Radio. This is your host, B. Alan Bourgeois, and I have with me James Doucette. James, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you.
So, James, you have written a lot of books. You are a part-time rancher, if I understand correctly. How did you get into that?
Well, we moved down here to Texas about 36 years ago, and I was in other businesses, and I got an interest in cattle just living out here, and we bought some ranch land, and we kind of worked our way into it. We've been in the cattle business about 35 years now, and it was never my full-time business, and it's been fun, but people are in the cattle business because they love the cattle business, not because it's profitable. But it's been a fun journey.
Yes, my father's also in the cattle business for that same reason. He enjoys it, and it's not for money making. Yeah. So I can relate to that. So you have a collection of books, but before we get to the ones that you've previously done, you have a new one that has just recently come out. It is called Flat Top Mountain Ranch, The Beginning. So right off the bat, with that type of title, is there going to be sequels?
Yes, it's not going to be written in sequence, but what I'm going to attempt to do is to show how the land impacts people. I think there's such a value to having land. And I'm going to show in the next book another group of people in a different time, how their lives are healed and mended by, and the land is part of it.
Okay.
So the two protagonists in the first one, I'm sorry.
No. I was actually going to ask about that because, land is the healing aspect, and you have two people from totally different backgrounds in this book. So tell us a little bit about those characters and how they end up working together. Yeah,
the one guy, Jack Donaldson, he's based upon my wife's family. They have a history of their family with letters and everything like that. And a couple of years ago, I was reading his Civil War letters. Jack Donaldson is a real character. And the other character is a black man who's living on a plantation, but it's not a slave plantation. It's a big plantation, and there were a lot of freeborn blacks in Louisiana. And both of them recruited to the Civil War. Jack goes through Gettysburg, and by that time he had put in his 2 years, and he sees what a carnage that was. And he says, I've got to do something different. He goes home, talks to his brothers and his father, and he had heard about the opportunities in the West, so he starts heading west. Well, Ty, he goes home, and he's talking to who he thought was just the owner of the property. And it turns out it's his father. And he's talking to, that was a revelation. It's kind of a small twist in the story. And then his father's comment was, he always thought the slavery would end on its own like it had in Europe. And he tried to protect his son and the people who lived on this large plantation from the evil. Well, in the Civil War, at Vicksburg, Ty sees exactly how it is. He had never been around a lot of slaves because the people that worked in the plantation were freeborn black people. Well, after that's over, and it's really the two battles are contemporaneous. He goes home and he's talking to his father, and they have a lot of conversation about why it happened and all that. His father said, well, son, after the Confederacy loses this war, which they certainly are going to, I think it's going to be worse for the black man in the South than it is now. But he has a buddy who happens to own the King Ranch. So he sends Ty to work for him and learn the cattle business. And there's a lot of interesting insights about how you work cattle and how you gather them, how you brand them and all that stuff. And then he says, well, I think I want to head west. Well, they both end up, Jack and Ty end up on the Santa Fe Trail. And they meet at a place called Adobe Walls. Now, this is historical fiction. And so you're going to bump into a lot of characters that you know. You know Quanah Parker, you know Goodnight, you know Kit Carson. And I know that their lives had touched each other. But the one thing I'm free to, as being a fiction writer, is we don't know what they said to each other. So I'm free to use my imagination in that. That's why I call it. It's historical fiction, but the scenes on the Santa Fe Trail and the experiences of riding on that land and working the livestock and having the oxen and all the things they go through. I've done I've done a fair amount of research, and probably most of the land that I write about, I have ridden over. So I want to bring people into the story, and I want them to appreciate West Texas and appreciate this area. Well, I'm originally from New York, and I'll have friends come down to, well, I've had people, let's not call them friends really, I've had people come down to visit me, and they say, Dad, there ain't nothing here. And I said, well, there is an airport. Enjoy your trip home. But if you spend time out here and you get to know the richness of the land and the richness of the people, there's a lot to like about this. And I want that to come through. And I'm hoping that I convey to the reader the beauty and the majesty of this country, because there is still a lot of land that looks just exactly like it did back in the 1760s, 1860s, excuse me. And I know my ranch land is, and the funny thing is, my ranch land, the Flat Top Mountain Ranch, is the bottom end of Goodnight's original ranch. Now, I use a little license to have Goodnight sell it to the boys, but actually I have the deed with his name on it, so I'm fairly genuine in that respect. And there is I want to bring out the cowboy culture somewhat and how it developed. One person read the book and says, "Oh, this is how they started to make chicken fried steak." I said, "Yeah, I know, but they didn't call it that then." You know, and I try to do some of that also to bring out some of the flavor of West Texas and its culture. And there's sub-characters. There's two old cowboys, and I've worked with these guys. You know, they have not changed. They'd rather be out with the cows than anything else. You can work them from sunup to sundown on horseback. Oh, get off the horse and fix that fence. I ain't doing that. I'm a cowboy. Okay, fine. You know, but they're quite a lovable lot, and I hope that comes through. I really do. And there's some, you know, interesting things, like, I don't know if people realize it, Goodnight invented the chuck wagon. You know, just little, see, I've been up to his ranch, and when they moved the buffaloes from the Goodnight Ranch down to Caprock Canyon State Park, which is just 10 miles from my ranch, that was quite a thing to see. And I want to try and get that feel out to people. And I don't know if it's going to appeal to a wide audience, but I know I know my books have a limited appeal to people out in this area. And believe it or not, in Africa. I don't know why they sell in Africa. My last book sells pretty well in Africa. I don't know why, but anyway.
So you mentioned earlier that you will be writing other stories related to this. How many books are you contemplating writing?
Oh, well, I do them one at a time. The next one is going to be a contemporary setting, and I can relate to it real well. I'll be glad to talk about it. It starts in Brooklyn, and it's a New York City cop from the 82nd precinct, which is just behind PS 26. And guess what school I went to? And there's a holdup in Roosevelt Savings Bank, and he ends up killing a black youth by mistake. Turns out to be one of his buddy's sons, and he 25 years in the police force. I'm done with this, and he heads to West Texas. And then that's the opening of the next book. I've written it already, part of it. And then his girlfriend is an artist who lives out in California, and her husband, well, they had drifted apart over the years, but her husband's caught up in one of these massive frauds. He's a broker, and she moves out to Canyon, Texas, to be with her girlfriend, and they end up meeting, and there's a it goes on from there. I haven't planned much beyond the next book.
When are you hoping to have this
But I
last
suspect
one
there'll
out?
be another one next year.
Next year?
Oh, this
Okay.
one is out now.
No, I mean the one
Yeah, the Flat Top Mountain.
Flat Top is out now.
I'm sorry.
That's right. Flat Top is out now.
Correct.
And then the one with the New York cop, you're planning on having that out when?
Well, and then his girlfriend is an artist who lives out in California, and her husband, well, they had drifted apart over the years, but her husband's caught up in one of these massive frauds. He's a broker, and she moves out to Canyon, Texas, to be with her girlfriend, and they end up meeting, and there's a it goes on from there. I haven't planned much beyond the next book.
When are you hoping to have this
But I
last
suspect
one
there'll
out?
be another one next year.
Next year?
Oh, this
Okay.
one is out now.
No, I mean the one
Yeah, the Flat Top Mountain.
Flat Top is out now.
I'm sorry.
That's right. Flat Top is out now.
Correct.
And then the one with the New York cop, you're planning on having that out when?
About next fall.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, the writing part's the easiest part. The editing's what takes all the time.
Yes. But it's worth it.
But,
We are at a point where we're going to step away and
I
let
know
our
that.
sponsors do their thing, and we'll be right back.
okay.
All right. If you need to get something to drink, now's a good time.
Oh, okay. I got to keep my
Authors Marketing Guild is a membership-owned organization designed to help authors succeed and learn how to better market and sell themselves and their books. Join us at authorsmarketingguild.com and receive so many benefits you'll wonder why you didn't join sooner. That's authorsmarketingguild.com.
Thank you for watching or listening to Indie Beacon Radio. Our sponsor, IndieLector.store, is the only bookstore that pays authors their fair share for book sales. Help authors to succeed and enjoy a great book by supporting them at IndieLector.store. Enjoy a 10% discount with coupon code SHOPPER20 at IndieLector.store. Coupon valid until December 31st, 2020. That's IndieLector.store, coupon code SHOPPER20.
The 5th annual Authors Marketing Event is coming to Granbury, Texas, July 24th through the 27th. Join us and learn from the professionals how to properly market and sell yourself and your books. Go to ame.authorsmarketingguild.com for all the details. That's ame.authorsmarketingguild.com. We Fiction is a fun, fast-paced writing contest for any author team to create a book based on what readers submit for plot, characters, locations, and even plot twists. Learn more about this unique contest at wefiction.dearindie.org.
Welcome back to Indie Beacon Radio. Don't forget to like us, follow us, or subscribe to one of our many channels. Now, here is your host for today's show.
And welcome back to Indie Beacon Radio. This is your host, Beyond Bourgeois. I'm talking with James Doucette, who has written a few novels. One of them, which is currently out, it just came out, is called The Flat Top Mountain Ranch, The Beginning, which would be a sequel or collection of stories. But Jim, you've also written another one a few years ago. It's called The Not So Great American Novel. Now, tell us a little bit about that.
That's my memoir. Well, a little preamble. About 7, 8 years ago, I went through cancer, and the chemo knocks your memory right out. And I was trying, and I told my doctor about it, and he says, "Well, you got to do things to, it'll come back, but you have to work on it. Do word games and all that." My wife suggested, "Why don't you write down what you did in business?" And that was how the book started. I wrote out 100 pages or so, and then I put it aside for a year. And a niece of ours came to visit. It turns out she was a book editor. I didn't know it. She said, "Let me read it." So then she encouraged me to finish it, and I finished it. And then I published it. And I said, "Well, I'll leave it to write it for my grandchildren, And then I started getting reviews on Amazon. I said, "Where in the world do these things come from?" I say, I'm not a writer by trade. And I was quite amazed at some of the reviews, and they're not solicited. I don't know how you play that game, and I've gotten a number of reviews, and then I put it on the online book club, and I got a lot of good reviews. And it sells well here in the local stores. I put it in the local drugstore, in a furniture store, and in some of the restaurants, and they sell very good locally, but I haven't done much beyond that. But it goes through my career in early Brooklyn. And I was brought up in Bedford-Stuyvesant, Brooklyn, which, if you are familiar with New York at all, it was not exactly the garden spot. But we didn't know we were poor, because everybody lived the same as we did. When you don't have television, how do you know you're poor? But I don't have a woe is me in me, I don't think. There was so much I learned, and I learned most of what I learned about business. I learned at my uncle's fruit store in downtown Brooklyn. And I relate those experiences, and my uncles were really my heroes. And then I went in the Navy at 17, and needless to say, I wasn't a high school graduate. And I put my time in the Navy, and I was a machinist mate. And the first book I ever read was the Machinist Mate's Manual, because I got tired of cleaning the bilges. And then I just had 2 tours in 2 years the first time, a year the second time. And when I was getting out the second time, in between my 2 tours, I finished high school. And one of the officers said to me, "What are you going to do when you get out?" And I said, "Oh, I have no idea." He said, "Well, why don't you go to college?" I said, "People like me don't go to college. What, are you kidding me?" So he helped me make out an application for CCNY. And believe it or not, I got accepted. I had to take review English and review math. I got through it. And then I couldn't really find a job I want. And I opened up the New York Times, and it said, "Well, I don't know what these things called accountants do, but they sure need a lot of them." And then somebody really helped me. They said, "You'll never do that." So I got a degree in accounting. And then I worked at it for a few years, and I said, "Oh my God, 40 more years of this? I don't think so." And then I got in the cable business in the early part of when it was really booming. And I worked with some real characters, and the stories, some of the reviewers think it's a little too much detail. I don't think so. But I talk about the ethics of the business at that time. And then I did that for a number of years. And I think about 1983, I said, "I've had all this I can stand." And we moved out here to West Texas, and it was me and Denise, and we were newly married at that point. I had a divorce, well, anyway, I did. And we moved out here, and I just wanted to get away from all that with my new wife and all that. And the amount of success we've had out here was beyond anyone's reasonable beyond my expectations. And we owned quite a few cable systems. And then right about the time of the S&L scandal, I had a few bucks extra, so I bought some banks. And then I operated those till about 1998, and I wrapped them all up. And some of why I did that and how I did it, turns out, I meant it as advice to my grandchildren, is, you know, you got to know when to leave the party. And 98 was kind of a perfect storm to sell my businesses. I had the cattle, which I really enjoyed. And I have a few other things I keep busy with, you know, charities and stuff like that. And that's really the story. And then I do cover faith. And some people think that's too much. I got a criticism of just one, about I was culturally inappropriate. Well, I'm an old fart, I guess, but we never thought in those terms in my generation. You know, it wasn't, you know, my uncles were Jewish, you know, I had, and the silly thing I heard in the 70s and 80s, some of my best friends are, well, I don't think that way, but yeah, and then I just described what was going on, and you know, my experiences in Spanish Harlem, that was pre-drugs. Going to Spanish Harlem was like going to a foreign country. It was so delightful, you know, and I kind of explained that, and I couldn't believe one person said I'm insensitive. I said, well, the people were from Puerto Rico. I mean, what am I going to say? The people of color from a small island in the Caribbean? No, they were Puerto Ricans. You know, I don't mean any insult by it at all. And some of them were very, very good friends. But that's pretty much it. And I talk about, I give some experience. I write some of the cowboy experiences I've had with ranching and stuff like that. And that's pretty much my biography or memorandum.
Well, after that book, you wrote another one calling Stealing Fire. Tell me about that.
Okay, that was written in 2015, based on the illogical premise that the Russians would try to take over our telecommunications industry. And my wife, being the original reader, as the news is flashing about Trump and all this stuff a year later, she says, you know, Jim, they're stealing your headlines. Because it really did deal with that. And that was actually something easy to see, because I had been in cable television. And it's not exactly what went on, but it's action adventure, and it talks about, and I know this to be true. You know, we have deeply embedded spies in this country. Of course, we don't talk about the deeply embedded spies we have in their country. You know, because I know this happens, and people say, "Where'd you get this stuff from?" I says, "Well, page 10 of the newspaper, actually." You know, well, we just had a spy swap with Iran. Surprise, surprise. A number of years ago, we swapped 10 spies, 10 for 10, you know, with the Russians. So it was fairly easy to build up that premise, and it's set in Radio City, Rockefeller Center, which for 5 years I sat in an office overlooking the skating ring in Rockefeller Center. So it was very easy for me to write about that. And then the whole premise of the story was it goes on. And that was my first chance at a novel. And I think I noticed that I republished it as Russia's Greatest Hack, because I rushed it to print, and I've regretted it ever since. But Russia's Biggest Hack has less grammatical errors than Stealing Fire. I didn't say none, I said less.
Yes.
Yeah, the next one I wrote was The Last Assassination. And again, this was written in 76 about the improbable assumption that a US drone could be hacked. Guess what happened a year later? And my wife says, you got to stop writing this stuff. They're stealing it from your book. And then it's about the turmoil in the Middle East. And I have a message in it. I don't know if people really always catch them, but I really do have something I want to say. And the Middle East is such a quagmire. And the central character, oh, this was fun. One of the central characters is a Kurd. And I describe how the Kurds have been shuffled over all through history. It really started at the end of World War I when French and the British sat down and drew lines on the paper, and they drew the Kurds out of existence. So then what just happened? We beat ISIS, supposedly. Guess who we used? The Kurds. Guess who we screwed? The Kurds. And historically, and I picked this out a couple of years ago, and these people have really been, beaten up by the victors, and even if they help them. And that kind of, it was a theme I could build on pretty readily, because I studied a lot about the Middle East, and I've been to most of the places I write about.
We need to let the sponsors do their thing, and we'll be right back.
Join Texas Authors on May 30th in Seguin, Texas for the first Texas Authors Only Book Festival celebrating Texas Authors and Writers Month. Learn more about this fun family event at lonestar.bookfestival.network. That's lonestar.bookfestival.network, and join us at the Seguin Events Complex on May 30th. The 5th Annual Authors Marketing Event is coming to Granbury, Texas, July 24th through the 27th. Join us and learn from the professionals how to properly market and sell yourself and your books. Go to ame.authorsmarketingguild.com for all the details. That's ame.authorsmarketingguild.com.
Well, hello there, my friends. My name is Randy James, independent voiceover producer in the Dallas, Texas area, available to write and record a 30-second commercial, much like the one you're hearing right now. It's a great way to help increase awareness and exposure to your book title. It's easy to do. Simply call me and we'll brainstorm on a few ideas, and in a few hours, I'll whip something up and send you a digital file ready to use. Remember, call or text me, Randy James, at 214-762-1942. Welcome back to Indie Beacon Radio. Don't forget to like us, follow us, or subscribe to one of our many channels. Now, here is your host for today's show.
Welcome back to Indie Beacon Radio. This is your host, B.L. Bourgeois. We have James Doucette with us, who's been talking about his books and all the different things he's written about. James, I understand you have your website. Tell us what that is.
Well, the only thing I really have is I have a Facebook page. I don't know how to use social media very well.
Okay.
In fact, luckily I could turn this computer on. My son's coming home pretty soon, but I was able to turn it on without much trouble.
All right.
I'm not really a computer person.
That's fine. On your Facebook page, you keep up to date with the latest information about your books coming out and stuff like that, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And we have that one book of...
It's on... all my books are... I'm sorry. All my books are on Amazon and Kindle. My latest book, The Flat Top Mountain Ranch, The Beginning, is now loaded on Amazon, and it's available. The Kindle, it's going to be loaded onto Kindle in the next week or so.
Great.
And then I'm going to run some... my son's coming home. We'll put together some ads for the Facebook page. And that's about the only thing I really do in promoting the book, other than local displays and stuff like that.
Great. So as far as if somebody wants to follow you on Facebook and keep up to date on what books are coming out and stuff, that's the best place to do it.
I do have an author's page on and it's James E. Doucette.
Okay, and that's on Amazon. Great. Okay,
Awesome.
So you have
Correct.
the New York cop book coming out next year. What other books have you planned to start working on and get ready?
Well, I have a couple of others that I published. I did some of the work on a book called Witnesses to the Crucifixion. That was a group of sermons by our pastor, and all I really did was write the epilogue. His sermons really made such an impact on me because he said, let's look at this from the point of view of the nail, the shroud, the crown of thorns. And he gave a series of sermons, which all I did was ask his permission to write them. And then I added an epilogue, which is not his book. His sermons are obviously based on the Bible. And the epilogue it's the legend of the dogwood tree, which is not biblically based, it's a legend. And then I just published 2 children's books of my daughter's. She just recently passed away, and they're available on Amazon. One is Isle of Dragonflies, and the other one is Animals I Know. And I've worked on those some. I wrote the introduction. That's about all I did.
Oh, great.
And the other projects I've been working on a collection of short stories. But I really like the novels. And now I'm going into my 3rd novel, and I really enjoy writing novels. You know, fictional history is probably a better description.
All right. Well, we are at the end of the show, and I thank you very much for being with us. We'll put it up on our system and let everybody learn about you and your books. And we wish you the best of luck.
Thank you for listening to Indie Beacon Radio, where creative souls can find help in marketing their creation.
Indie Beacon Radio with the host, B. Alan Bourgeois.
Indie Beacon Radio is produced by B. Alan Bourgeois for Authors Marketing Guild LLC, copyright 2020. Voiceover by Randy James, Lydia Bello, and B. Alan Bourgeois. To be a sponsor of the show or for more information, please email us at info@authorsmarketingguild.com. To be interviewed for the show, please complete the form at radio.authorsmarketingguild.com. Music Always Rejoice by Ramcord.